Welcome back, everybody. I know, long time no see for those of you who just joined me on the most recent Scouting Report special, but today is the day we get to celebrate the Season 3 finale of What If. We are going over all sorts of different scenarios through United's history. If you guys have been following along, looking at key moments, key transfers, key hirings, firings, whatever, when it comes to managers, anything and everything, even ownership situations. We have looked at a lot of that in the last 3 seasons to explore what might have been had something else occurred, right? Had things gone a different way. These are the times where we think about, what if? That's what we're doing, guys. This is United versus Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and today is the Season 3 finale. And that's what we're here to explore. We are back with episode 12 now to explore what might have been had a certain fax machine not malfunctioned back in 2015. What if Keylor Navas had joined the club in summer of 2015? What if David De Gea's transfer to Real Madrid on deadline day in that summer hadn't broken down? That's what we are here to discuss today. So, like the video, you guys. Subscribe if you are new. Check those memberships to learn how you can get involved in suggestions for episodes of What If, because starting 11 and Legends members, you do get to make those suggestions, just like you get to make suggestions for players for the scouting reports. So keep that in mind. I love doing them, but I also want to hear what you guys have to say. So let's get stuck in, you guys. The move of David De Gea from United to Real Madrid in 2015 was a move that was halted not by disputes over money or an injury or last-minute changes of heart, but it is a move that was decided by a fax machine. De Gea was arguably the best shot stopper in football at the time. You can fight me if you don't agree, but it's just the facts, right? Iker Casillas left Real Madrid that summer and joined Porto, and then Navas joined Madrid in 2014, so a year prior, off the back of really what was a stellar World Cup, if you guys remember. Florentino Perez buying a player after a World Cup? No, never. That never happens. Being Spanish as well, it did seem like De Gea was almost destined to be the next Galactico. I mean, he had everything that they really wanted, right? Despite breaking through between the sticks for their rivals, Atletico Madrid, before joining United. But let's face it was a dream for most players to play for Real Madrid, and an opportunity that was really too good for David De Gea to pass up, if we're all being quite honest. Remember, too, at that time, that De Gea was also entering the final year of his contract, and so that move would have seen De Gea join Real Madrid and Keylor Navas joined United in a basically what would have been a swap deal. All parties involved pretty much agreed that they all benefited from it. Enter the paperwork. Now, if you didn't know already, employment, taxes, etc., all that in Spain works a little differently than England. A lot of that stuff works differently. That being said, because of that, there were a few documents that needed to be addressed, and a fax machine was used to ensure those necessary documents from the Spanish side of things were handled as expediently as possible. I don't know why fax machine. I've never really used one. It is what it is, but I feel like the only thing older and slower would have been to send it on a dinosaur at that point. But this is where it all went wrong, because reportedly the fax machine malfunctioned. Now, some reports claim that these final steps were just left too late on deadline day, and they simply just weren't finalized in time. That's kind of where I lean. Madrid probably should have acted a little bit quicker than waiting till the final hours, but it is what it is. Either way, La Liga did not receive the documents before their deadline, and the entire thing fell apart because it was late. Both United and Real Madrid blamed each other for the deal breaking down, but what happened was Navas stayed at Madrid, became their number one keeper. De Gea ended up signing a new 4-year contract at United worth $200K a week, if you guys remember. And that's how things played out, right? Because of a fax machine. But what if it had been different? What if the fax machine hadn't malfunctioned? Or maybe, if you believe the other explanation, what if the paperwork had been finalized perhaps in a more timely manner, right? What if Madrid had just worked a little faster? What if De Gea had joined Real Madrid in 2015? And what if Keylor Navas joined United, right? Remember, this was peak David De Gea at the time. His reflex-heavy shot stopping suited Madrid's style, but he wasn't super comfortable on the ball, at least not as comfortable as Keylor Navas was. He's not as quick to come off his line in his box either as Keylor Navas. Madrid probably would have shipped a few more goals at the time, but I think Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane probably would have had De Gea covered. And I still think they would have had success, Real Madrid, even after Zinedine Zidane took over. I think the problem would have been De Gea's dip in form in 2019. That wouldn't have flown very well at Real Madrid. They're very, very impatient at that club, both fans and Florentino-wise, which probably would have mean Thibaut Courtois still would have been brought in at the time. I think that was just another Galactico that Perez just couldn't pass up, right? This probably would have meant that in all reality, David De Gea might have gone down as more of a transitional goalkeeper signing at Madrid for a few years rather than the guy to be there for the next, decade. Probably wouldn't have been there very longer than that. Now, that doesn't mean he's a bad keeper, but I just don't that at that level you can't afford to go on these dips and forms and these runs of just poor form, right? We love him at United, but his limited ability on the ball and his noted dips in form amidst, contract talks, again, that wouldn't have gone down at a legendary club like Real Madrid. And what about, Keylor Navas at United? Again, this would have been a swap deal. Well, to start, we would have had to get over the little bit small issue of Navas not really wanting to leave Real Madrid. This is what he had to stay. He said, "I cried when I found out I was staying. It was a buildup of emotions. I didn't want to leave. Madrid is my home. I signed the Manchester United contract on a stretcher while I had my medical, but I want to write my own story at this club. I thought that if God wanted me to leave Madrid, it would be for the best, but he didn't want me to, and I'm still here." So Navas, not saying he didn't want to go to United because it was United, but again, he wanted to stay at Real Madrid. That's just, and no one can fault him for that. It's Real Madrid, right? But you can see he had the contract signed. The deal was all ready to go. It's just because of the fax machine. Once you get past this little hurdle, right? What United would have got in Keylor Navas was a steady, consistent keeper. He didn't have necessarily the elite level shot stopping of peak David De Gea, in 2015, but he was still better on the ball, a little more confident in big matches, and just a bit more of a commanding presence in his box. Under the system of Louis van Gaal, who was United manager at the time, United faced a lot of shots. This is why our defenders looked so good at the time, because they just had more defending to do. And in that scenario, there's a strong chance we would have probably conceded a few more goals without De Gea's shot stopping to get us out of trouble. But again, we were tied for the least goals conceded back in 2015, 2016, if you guys recall. Under Jose Mourinho, though, I think Navas's composure would have fit right in a little better. And I do think that his stability wouldn't have led to as many errors and howlers like we saw from De Gea later on in his career at United, if you guys remember. So who would have gotten the better deal, do you think, out of all this? As much as I love David De Gea, I do think in the long run, United might have gotten the better deal just in terms of goalkeeping profile. Remember, Navas was crucial for Real Madrid, especially in the Champions League. And during that stellar period under Zinedine Zidane, while De Gea was superb, I just don't think he would have been there long term. Whereas at United, I do think Navas would have been a steady, reliable keeper, more in the modern all-around mold, well into his 30s at United, offering, again, more consistency, more stability, even during all the managerial changes that were going on and whatnot. I think he would have been a steady force. And then even in the later years, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in charge and starting to maybe favor Dean Henderson over David De Gea, again, Dean Henderson probably would have been our number one had he not caught COVID in that season when he was getting ready to be starting. And I think that during that time, that would have been the time for a natural transition, a natural passing of the baton from Keylor Navas to an academy keeper like Dean Henderson. We don't really have a whole lot of luck and good track record when it comes to academy keepers. And I do think that would have changed with that whole goalkeeping scenario. Henderson had a solid penalty record, confident, commanding in the box. I think he had the personality that we like. We all say, Emi Martinez, he's got that personality. Henderson was a bit arrogant. He backed himself, and he was talking about how he thought he should be the number one. I like that from a keeper. But who knows? If he would have continued his development as number one, it remains to be seen. But that's a what if for another day. But back in 2015, David De Gea almost became a Galactico, and Keylor Navas almost became a United player. It all fell apart due to a fax machine and some late deadline day scrambling from both sides. Both sides blame each other. Both sides ended up sticking with their keepers. The rest is history. But again, what if? I think, it's subjective what you think, could have happened, who you think would have gotten the better deal. But Navas signed the contract. It very nearly happened, and really clearly could have had a different keeper at United for another decade before maybe passing that torch over to Dean Henderson. Who knows? But let me know what you think about that. If you guys remember that whole ordeal, if you still laugh about it to this day, that all that was undone by a fucking fax machine. But until the next time, guys, keep a lookout for the season 4 premiere of What If. That'll be coming out probably in the next several months. You guys know I like to take a little break in between. Go get caught up on all the past episodes. We've got 3 seasons now, 12 episodes in total. They're super short, bite size. I enjoy making them. You guys enjoy watching them. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you are new members. Get involved with your suggestions for future episodes, and we will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.